Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's Coach D. Anthony, and I'm here today with today's segment of Morning Minutes with Coach D. And our topic today is grief. Most definitely is not your only remaining connection to your loved one. Now, this is something that I've come across with many survivors over the years that I've been supporting grief recovery. Um, there is this notion that people feel like they have to hold on to the grief, that, grief is almost a friend or an ally of theirs because, if the sense is, if I lose the grief, I'll have nothing. So I wanted to spend a little time touching on that today. And I thought the most effective way, if you will indulge me, I'm going to read a little from my book, 14 Reasons You're Not Letting Yourself Heal, to speak to this. So I'm reading from the chapter entitled, If I Lose the Grief, I'll Have Nothing. And just to step back, a note about the book. What the book covers is 14 of the most common and detrimental myths that I've run across in the 5.5 years that I've been doing grief support that tend to keep people stuck. And oftentimes it's not even consciously, it's subconsciously because of these ingrained beliefs that are developed. So, what the book looks to do is dismantle and debunk those myths so that it can clear a path for you to begin to seek and accept the healing and recovery that you most certainly deserve and need. So, I'm going to read again from the chapter, If I Lose the Grief, I'll Have Nothing. This myth, while likely not quite as widespread as some of the others, nevertheless packs an awfully powerful and unrelenting punch for those caught in its clutches. Essentially, this grows out of the false notion and ultimately ingrained belief that death consumes everything, a sense that every vestige of love and everything else we ever shared with our loved one is gone. Everything has been heartlessly snatched from us, never to be felt or available to us ever again, with only one exception, the grief. Thus, if we were to lose that grief, then we would be left with absolutely nothing. Given that scenario, is it any wonder that the very ideal of grief recovery wouldn't likely be received so well? It makes a lot of sense, right? It's the very thought of losing the only remaining connection to our loved ones whose loss has left such a tremendous hole in each of our lives. The sickening ideal of having even that stolen from you after everything else has already been brutally ripped away. It's the only thing we have left to hold on to, perhaps the only thing we have keeping everything, including us, from completely falling apart. Fear and anxiety kick in, and a natural reaction from there is to repel, avoid, and sabotage the obvious and imminent threat. Whatever it takes, whether consciously or subconsciously, the threat is dealt with and the perceived only link remains safely intact. Sound familiar? Here's the question though. What if all of that is built on a lie? What if it's simply not true that grief is the only surviving link to our lost loved ones? What if that's merely the way it feels? You see, the reality is that grief is not our only connection with our loved ones. Truth be told, I'm not all too certain it is a true connection to our lost loved ones at all. It seems to me that perhaps it's more of a connection with our loved ones' departures from this place, and not so much with who our loved ones were in this life, what our loved ones stood for, or the loving spirit that continues to live on for each of them. And even if it can accurately be considered a connection to our loved one, it most definitely isn't even the strongest one or the most relevant one for that matter. For that strongest connection is none other but love. And for as much as it might feel as though love has been lost, for as much as it might feel like it is no longer there for you to feel and connect with, the truth is the love is most definitely still there. The truth is it never left. It's simply been overwhelmed and perhaps somewhat crowded. It is still there, though, likely buried just under all the heartache, sorrow, anger, guilt, anguish, frustration, and pain. It is still there. So just think about that for a moment. That love is still there. You don't have to be afraid that losing the grief will cause you not to have a connection. Because as I mentioned in the passage, grief isn't even truly a connection to your loved one. It's a connection to the passing, to the event, to that tragic event. But the love, you see, once we are able to clear out all the pain and the weight that we're carrying and the noise and everything else, what we do is we clear the path so that we can reconnect with the love and feel that love in the most incredible, unadulterated, untainted way. And that's the reason for grief recovery. That's the reason for healing. And I can say this with certainty because it's exactly what I've spent the last 5.5 years helping people get to. When they lose that connection, when they lose being trapped in all of that grief and all of that pain and all of that misery, there is a freedom there. And the freedom is to be able to feel that love. You don't have to be afraid of losing that grief. You don't have to be afraid of grief recovery. So think about that. This may have been something that's been part of you consciously, or for a lot of people, they don't even realize that this is a block, keeping them trapped. But upon realizing it, and realizing it, that you don't have to be afraid, that you do have a more powerful connection, and getting to that powerful connection, to that love, again, is what's most important. Therein lies the freedom. Here's wishing you your very best possible day. Again, I want to remind you, comment. If you have questions about what I've said here, if you have doubts, if you have experiences, if you'd like me to comment on some of your thoughts and perspectives, comment below. Let's get this discussion going. And also, by you commenting, again, that helps us be able to reach more people because Facebook understands that, it is a post that is of interest. And also, when you comment, it makes it that much more likely that you'll continue seeing our morning minutes with Coach D posts and other posts in your newsfeed going forward. It's always good to get the feedback that the message hit home or you like what we're doing here. So thanks for that too. Okay, so take care and see you soon.